I just have to note that when we first started doing these videos, you weren't always backward hat guy. It was like a rare occurrence, maybe just like on a bad hair day when you had to cover up the hair or whatever the case was, and that's a fine hair day.
So it's up
then
there.
All of a sudden, you wore the backwards hat once. Somebody in the comments section told you that you were too old to wear the backwards hat.
No, they said, you're not in your 20s anymore. And I said, bro, I'm not even in my 30s anymore.
I've got a theory to share with you for senior night. How many seniors are on this roster?
6,
Dave,
right?
Yeah, you guys, okay, so you've already counted it. Clearly one of us more professional than the other. Because there's 6 seniors, we can't have the senior night speeches turning into the Shawshank Redemption. All right, I don't want to be sticking around for 3 hours listening to all these guys talk.
Amen.
So here's my theory. You get a set amount of time based off of how long you've been with the program. Mitch Lightfoot's been with the program for 6 years.
6 minutes.
I was going to give him 45, but you get the point. Remy Martin has been here for 1 year. Jalen Coleman-Lands has been here for 1 year.
1
exactly.
minute.
Make it proportional to how long you've been with the program. That way we can all get out of there and get on with our nights.
I think it will be, like, organically. I do. Like, what's Remy going to do, man? He's got one thing to say. Thanks for supporting me. It was fun to be here. Rock chalk. Like, I mean, he's not going to be like, I remember when KT did this. And, like, none of that's going to happen. So I think it'll happen organically. But I'm with you. I am praying for that. The senior night speeches on deadline is a nightmare for a newspaper man. Hat or no hat.
Oh, right. That's what everybody wants to hear about. The plight of the newspaper man. This is Basketball Friends. He is Matt Tait. I am Nick Schwerdt. And Kansas has lost 2 in a row to Baylor on Saturday, to TCU on Thursday, both of which were by double digits. The other thing that those 2 games had in common is that it felt like KU got outworked. Against Baylor, Scott Drew threw a counterpunch, went small. Maybe you weren't expecting it, and that's why you didn't have a good answer for it. But against TCU in Fort Worth, an environment that's probably the most lackluster in the Big 12, it was surprising to see from start to finish, not just TCU outwork KU, but for KU to not really have the poise to get themselves back into the game.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's something going on, and Bill Self said after the TCU game, he said, we just didn't look like we competed, and I don't know if we're tired or what. And I think that last part is the part that's so interesting because it is March 2nd, 3rd, whatever. He doesn't know. Like, it is his job to know. And I'm not dogging him. I'm just saying, like, that's how wild this season is, this team is. Like, there are still so many unknowns with this team that you just don't see at this time of year. So I think what's most interesting about both of those games, 10-point losses, like you talked about, they were in both of them. I mean, Ochai goes 10 for 17 instead of 4 for 17 against TCU. They win the game. They were even up with Baylor with 3 minutes to go or close to it. I mean, what a different world this would be and what different thoughts we would have if they won both of those games, right? They'd maybe be ranked number 1 and a lot
number 1
seed.
You lost double digits in both of them, so it's tough to imagine that world, right? Because
that's true.
You were up for the first 10 minutes of the Baylor game, but they controlled the rest of that one, and for TCU.
Definitely.
So the last 70 minutes of Kansas basketball that we've watched, we saw the other team control the game.
So there it is, right? Like, maybe that's the big question. Can this team finish? We saw it, right? I mean, Ochai against Texas Tech, CB against Oklahoma, DeJuan against Iowa State. We saw them finish and win a bunch of close games, and they were praised rightly so for those. But maybe now that's starting to even out a little bit, and this team's not as good a closing team as maybe we once thought.
I kept waiting against TCU, even after halftime, for them to say, okay, now we're ready to go. We're Kansas, you're TCU. We're going to assert our dominance on you. But it never happened. And for a team that's so laden with upperclassmen, not just the 6 seniors that we talked about, 5 of whom are, at least in the mix in terms of the rotation. But you got Christian Brown, who's been with the program for 3 years as well. It's surprising for a team with that much experience to lack poise. They seemed disjointed. They seemed flustered from the jump. If I'm Bill Self, or if I'm a Kansas fan, that to me is more concerning than the outcome. That to me is more concerning than 2 straight losses. It's that the NCAA tournament's starting here in about 2 weeks. And I just saw a really experienced team lack poise in a not so hostile environment.
They were down 4 and they were playing like they were down 40. I mean, 4. You're right there. Relax. Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know that they know where that comes from. I mean, this is obviously a team that has huge goals and high expectations and believes that, you know, they're a national title contender, and maybe they still are, but part of it's the stage of the season. Part of it's the road atmosphere. I mean, look, I know that TCU is not Hilton Coliseum or Allen Fieldhouse or anything crazy, but that crowd was fired up and that team was fired up, and that was their one chance to punch hard and basically make themselves a lock for the tournament. And so I think there's a lot of things with this team that you could look at and say, oh God, I don't know about that, or oh, this is a problem, or oh, that could be scary. But at the end of the day, this is still a team that when they are playing well, they're still capable of beating most teams out there on any given night. The thing that's crazy about this team, though, is I still get the feeling that they're capable of losing to almost any team on any given night.
Yeah, what's so weird about that is that when you are up against the ropes or you feel like you just need a calming presence, normally you would look to the point guard. And that to me is like, I'm not trying to make this about another Remy conversation because it's so easy to invoke his name, the Remy versus DeJuan, where does Joe fit in? But that whole sort of conversation, that's the story, is that the fact that we're still having the same conversations 3 months later about who this team's point guard is, who should be playing more, is that there's 2 games left in the regular season and you're still sort of shrugging your shoulders and putting your palms in the air when it comes to that backcourt. It kind of reminds me of like the David Beaty era of Kansas football, where every single quarter, every single drive, it's a different quarterback. These guys are better than that. But the answer is that when you don't have good quarterback play, there's no way to handle a quarterback controversy or competition, because no matter who you put out there, you're not going to get the results you want. To a different extent, that's how I view this point guard rotation. It's that it doesn't matter whether it's DeJuan, whether it's Joe, whether it's Remy. None of those guys are giving you everything you want. Therefore, you're still just sort of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what can stick for a minute or two here or there.
You know, I don't want to sound like a Kansas basketball apologist, but I do think that's sort of one of those same situations with Ochai, right? He's not going to shoot 4 of 17 every game. If he goes, 10 of 17, they win the game. I said that earlier. But with DeJuan, it's the same thing, right? I mean, he was 0 for 3. If he scores those buckets, if he scores 6 points and he finishes his night with 6 points and 7 assists and 0 turnovers, pretty good night. He's not that far off from being a stabilizing force at that point position. He's just got to find a way to score a little bit, because that's 7 assists and 1 turnover at Baylor and 7 assists and 0 turnovers at TCU. You do not want anything more than that from your point guard in terms of setting the table, but he's also got to be able to do just a little bit more to make sure that then becomes a well-rounded, solid night where you're contributing in all ways, not just setting other guys up.
Anything else? Anything you want to get to?
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool.
I mean, one thing, I guess. Is that better?
Yeah, there we go. Folks, we just witnessed a boy become a man.